Welcome everyone to another Quality Linux live stream here on our channel. Today a quick news. Previously last year we made a video and celebrated on some Linux plumbers websites, the removal of isolated frame buffer scrolling that annoyed ourselves quite a bit, because if you run vintage stuff, right, like PlayStations, but seriously, really everything else, I said, for me it is super annoying. Sure, I run Wayland and the latest and greatest previous videos, but if there's an oops, I want to scroll back that, or if I run some low level or like installation on some vintage retro or otherwise virtual machine stuff, I also want to have a little bit of scroll back, and I found it really silly with millions of lines in Linux kernel, removal of a couple of hundreds or thousands of lines, because they just couldn't get the tiny little easy thing of that should be easy of scrolling some text. So Linus Torvalds finally agreed and reverts re-enabling reverts to re-enable hardware isolated scrolling with legacy frame buffer drivers. So in contrast to other Linux plumbers of YOLO delete all this shit, it's like actually so someone took over a little bit of maintenance there. Helge Deller, I think, let's check the name, Helge Deller, who is otherwise also maintaining PA risk, or the author, I think, of lots of PA risk stuff. Certainly totally amazing. And so someone who loves vintage and retro stuff as much as us and wastes even more of their time on maintaining this stuff, totally amazing. So he also totally agrees with us. It's like, yeah, dude, the commit was total, except being celebrated on some Linux plumbing websites. It's like, yeah, turns out, I mentioned this last year, this is so silly, it should be the easiest hello world code of some operating system lecture at some universities, and 2021 they deleted that. And it turns out that I was actually full of lies and regressions, because, I mean, I pointed out all the silliness of this and how it's useful and how this is just hilarious, but Helge Deller also like, yeah, this actually, the statements were not true there. So 2021, after 30 years of Linux kernel, people just YOLO some code disablement in the Linux kernel to be celebrated on some biased, not to call them news sites. So the original commit message mentioned that only 3 DRM drivers, Novo GMA 500, like, yeah, not the least important, uses hardware registration in the past, and thus the code for checking using scrolling acceleration is obsolete. And that statement is not true, because the DRM drivers there are around 35. Other FBDev drivers were dependent on FBDev, FBcon, and still provide hardware acceleration for FBDev. The original commit message also states that Sizerbot found lots of bugs in FBcon, and thus it's often the solution to just delete the code and remove features, like, yeah, 2021, right? Just delete code and remove features, because C is too difficult in a single address-based monolithic Linux kernel. Turns out that is true. However, the bugs which actually affected all users of FBcon, including DRM, were fixed. So yeah, 2021, right? It's full of bugs, let's delete it. It's like, yeah, wait a moment, not so fast, right? It's like the bugs were fixed and affects others, and it's like, what you even got to talk about? Including them, so code was dropped. Support for software scrollback and FBcon commit that. So to further analyze which bugs were found in this bot, they have looked through all the patches and drivers videos which were tagged with this bot or this caller back to year 2005. The vast majority fixed the reported issues on a higher level, example, screen to be resized, or when the font size is changed. Few ones were also, yeah, 2021, 2022. C is so difficult, it's even hard to implement screen resizing and font size change, right? After 30 years of research in the Linux kernel space. The few ones which touched driver code fixed a real driver bug, example given, adding a check So none of those patches touch code of either scroll move or so this means there is no real reason why scroll move had to be ripped out and just scroll reader had to be used instead. The only reason, can imagine, was scroll move yada yada. Some people mention memcopy instead of hardware selection is pretty much the same speed, but that's not true. Also, yeah, as I said, right, and I found this myself. I found after this, it's so annoying. I show you something on YouTube, RISC-V. Yeah, also latest and greatest, right? RX, the highly praised and news article shouts out of RDNA2 here from us on RISC-V, right? You boot the stuff up, you don't even have scrollback, right? This is so hilarious, and this is back to the future of what were the people thinking? I quickly want, so yeah, just want to give you this. This is so hilarious and just another, like, adding to the data points of I'm not telling bullshit here, right? When I say something, then usually there is some merit in it. Cheers, as much as coffee is in this cup. So for me, that means we are close to finally releasing our T2 Linux distribution here, right? What was supposed to be 21.11, probably becoming 22.2 to 22.2 anyway. More twos. Certainly a more amazing version number. No, but no kidding. So I quickly want to check if we can rip this out here. Meaning, did I click? I clicked on that. So the patches are not that big, right? So they are like the top of the head of Linux latest 5.17 RC3. And so let's see, I hope, let's see, does that give us, oops, darn, I so hate when that happens. That comes from actually Chrome, as much as I'm not a Chrome fan, actually, at least the one you have so many tabs open live on YouTube and then Apple Q because, yeah, and away is, yeah. So let's see if we, usually we try to be raw, vanilla, upstream stuff, but if it's so annoying as this patch, then let's quickly check if we want to curl it into here for some added usability. As usual, it's not the most important, it's just like, yeah, trolling people and because we can, and as I said, it's so annoying, it's probably worth it. Disable, I think this, let's see, is this a smaller one? We also need to test this. I anyway was thinking whether we should, also yes, this code, this diff even fits on a floppy, so it's like, yeah. I said it before in our microkernel, so the thing is, of course, like, yeah, maintaining the best Linux distribution comes with a price. Let's call this, or should we, let's maybe hot fix and see, so that is FB patch and, oops. The thing is, this code is even slow, right? I'm not even impressed by this original code. I always found it mighty slow. This is also the wrong one. And the irony is this is this kind of code that could be drastically faster on a microkernel. Well, it could be drastically faster in a monolithic Linux kernel as well if they would have some dedication and stuff. But in a monolithic kernel, it's of course harder because everything less amazing APIs to work, single address space if something crashes and security and stuff. Because also using 3D acceleration, right? You usually don't like GL or Vulkan accelerate stuff. Because this stuff is so slow, this should of course be way faster. And even on, for example, you could use SIMD, PowerPC, even Altivec, and AVX, whatever. too hardware isolated, drawing these glyphs there. Stuff, of course, not in the Linux kernel because it's so difficult. So what have we done here now? Oops, RTL something. So let's, so that should be ID equals 11 stuff to, and the other to FB2. And the testing takes even longer, but I anyway wanted to fire up the P3. I actually, as crazy as I am, and so for this year I kind of have bigger plans with the YouTube channel. It's just being previous video extremely exhausted after a newborn in the pandemic and pandemic anyway. And but otherwise I have quite some hardware stock for videos, including I auctioned another P3 as probably sent prayers and help. I hope I didn't get scammed on eBay. So that's P3. That would be amazing if that special flavor actually does arrive, because right now I'm feeling a little bit, nah, did I pull this auction too quickly? Yeah, so you wanna keep your fingers crossed and pray but yeah, I probably should stop wasting my hard-earned YouTube coins. You know what, we can actually use that to build this. And yeah, stop wasting my hard-earned money on vintage Abandonware, as cool as it usually is, and continue a more minimalist lifestyle. And yeah, anyway, so yeah, this actually looks like it probably applied, because usually if this is obviously building on an epic thread-ripping Horizon, so if some patch fails, this should be in tempfs, so most likely this did apply. And then, as usual, shipping the state-of-the-art of frame-buffer scrolling, isolated frame-buffer scrolling to T2 users. First, as we already had set standard, set standard update for higher set standard performance, so Linux here. So yeah, that did build hotfix. So that did apply. FB2, and I would hope that this brings all scrollback back. I mean, they still mention the removal of software scrolling in FVGA con. I hope for our case here, this gives other backward. It needs to be tested. Yeah, theoretically we could, but this also is the limit, right? Wasting my time for such nonsense. I could also have this running here. We could also test Takashi, what is his name? Takashi from Alza, Takashi, Alza, Linux, Evi. Takashi Evi polished continues to forward update our patch that we did for set standard compressed firmware loading. We could theoretically update that, because we obviously still ship that for lower memory requirements for our init.rd. And the problem is, this is another 30 minutes most likely, and I'm not feeling like, as you see, not only giving a funny summary on YouTube, but finding the patch. I mean, I saw it scrolling by, refinding it, rediscovering it, pulling it in, building it, testing it. I mean, just building maybe 10 minutes of that, plus all the context switching, right? And stopping answering business email and stuff. But if I seriously test this, I would need to grab something that needs firmware, like our Adaptec USB 2 exchange dongle or anything else. Maybe even, the problem is I can't use anything like this Intel wireless I have in this RISC-V, because it's not in the init.rd necessarily. So I would need to either build an init.rd, because this is also the stuff, right? People might, and this is also why bugs happen, because people test something and they were not even using it. For example, if I would like test it now on the RISC-V board here, and like the Intel wireless still works, I wouldn't even have tested it because that is loading the uncompressed firmware from set standard compressed BetterFS in the fully booted system and not in the set standard compressed init RD. So always need to be careful that you actually test what you wanted to test and like not test bullshit, not testing not the right thing. And this is why in the end what is a 10 minutes patch then is at least 30 minutes, maybe even more. So yeah, that builds, we need to test this. And then for the RSX stuff, the thing is, of course, I don't like need it. I would have done more P3 RSX stuff like a decade ago when this stuff was newer. But for the YouTube channel, we will eventually do that. That's certainly, it's also probably nice video content of running homebrew stuff in software emulation there in PS3, RPCS3, CS3 or so. Let's try, is there an update to that? Yeah, but then I also need to finally spend the extra minutes to January 1st, I think we have that. The problem with that is even, it sounds so easy, right? I'm totally aware that even that, so that takes like a day, right? Because it sounds easy of, hey, just compile some homebrew stuff, but I would need to compile all the homebrew toolchain stuff and trial and error, like getting started with that. And that is easily an hour or two, even, yeah, like easily an afternoon. And then getting into homebrew and adding some glue code of running probably, yeah, obviously not the Xdriver directly, maybe the best. So neither the Linux kernel code is the most amazing of P3 frame buffer nor the Xorg driver. So maybe the very best thing would actually, even the easier thing, because running the P3 frame buffer code in software emulation, there is 0 point because that code does very little. And the Xdriver is also such alien X style code. So it's probably easier to get some demo running, like a freestanding new from scratch readable demo, and gather knowledge from that. And actually I wanted to check if he has this. So you probably want to share, like, and subscribe. I only wanted to mostly give a comedy shout out of this insane situation. And I mean, there is even more. I probably should make it another video, because for me, this is what I really find so surprising and embarrassing, is that the style that the Linux kernel people, and so they think they are the best, in reality they create so much chaos, like 2022 applying this patch that in reality was, as seen here, not true and full of lies, and also such low-hanging fruit, like low-hanging code of so simple frame buffer stuff. And so actually I was considering to revert this last year. I only didn't revert this because they mentioned some of this code was disabling this stuff, and there was still some code left in of like to do remove the rest. And I did not spend my time reverting that back then, because I thought the Linux kernel people will leave all the remaining stuff in there. And so this is, to my surprise, that like 1 year, like, or not, maybe not even 6 months or so, the code is not even, nobody continued to delete that and clean that up, and someone even stepped up to maintain the fbdev stuff. And now with this being reverted, it of course makes sense to test this, and especially in the grand scheme of P3 things, whether that gives us crawlback. Yeah, so 2022 starts off with some interesting surprises, and so there were more bugs, right? There was also a Docker related. Was it Docker? I think it's Docker related sandbox escape, right? And other bugs. And this is to me really surprising that we still, or continues to surprise, that we still have such kind of bugs. And as I said before, I would have expected after 30 years of the best engineers working on this from all companies of the best companies of Oracle and Microsoft and IBM and Facebook and Google and stuff on working on the Linux kernel, that this should have converged to some bug-free state, and somehow it isn't. So yeah, as usual, T2 will be on the forefront of this technology and shipping that. And now I also need to urgently finish the grub testing and last minute code quirks there. What else do we have, by the way? So we had some people committing new stuff that is certainly pretty amazing. So yeah, welcome to 2022, right? This kind of commits are like up to 30 commits. Well, certainly our data bot, right? Previous video helping there, nothing like 2022 without our own AI. But otherwise, new contributors, new maintainers, new users sending patches. That state is certainly amazing. Yeah, actually, let's commit this already. All right, so we're already in there. Imported 17 RC3 frame FB. Oops. 3 and then there you have that. A nice 55K revision there for you to play along at home and test at home. I hope this restores scrollback. For our microkernel, so I have new hardware here, and in our microkernel we will of course do this in user space. And the crazy thing is, maybe last but not least, there are of course other YouTubers, and I think this should be probably this one, reference monospace turnaround. So this is an insane performance, like simple code, reasonable speed, also yeah, like only UTF-8. I think this is the right one. So this is from some other YouTuber, and although I think this is Windows only probably, but he also shows like piping. If you want to see crazy stuff, it's like, yeah, this YouTuber on Windows is like rendering, what is it? I think he has like test files of random text of 2 gigabytes or something. And the original Windows terminal of scrolls, well, he found slow, but I would say that was still faster, of course, than the otherwise really lagging Linux terminal. But yeah, 2022 or 2021, and some YouTuber like us, it's like, yeah, YOLO, this Windows scrolling is so slow. And it's like, yeah, let's write this. And so this is faster than anything open otherwise Linux I've seen so far, including the Alacrity fastest rusting, right? But yeah, 2021, some random YouTuber like us, it's like, yeah, YOLO, hold my beer. Let's implement some, keep it simple, reasonable, fast. And it's like, I think this is rendering, well, I think it's rendering asynchronously, and I think this is even what I said, right? I think in my other videos I said, because the Linux code in most terminals are rendering synchronously, and so they render everything, every data coming through there, they render. And I'm pretty sure I said already years ago, I really wonder that the stuff is not rendering this asynchronously, so that like if you run something, like accidentally scrolling something, then you often have even hard time to control see that. And I'm pretty sure I in the past said, I wonder why. I mean, this stuff isn't rendered asynchronously, so that like with like even 60 frames per second, but like if you have gigabytes, like he, and it certainly happened to me, right? You run find something, and then, for example, on a vintage hardware at Sunblade or P3 and then you control C in the bloody Linux kernel, it has already so much scroll back window that even if you control C, that it's still scrolling for a minute and stuff, and that is even not very much find data. But yeah, 2021, some YouTuber like Hold My Beer, gigabytes of data processed there in seconds, which I totally agree how it should be. Like, yeah, similar to what I say here. So there are other sane people out there, like philosophies of optimization and keeping stuff reasonable, simple and fast, because obviously. Anyway, yeah, so that stuff builds. So far so good. That is NT2. I hope you enjoy this. As usual, leave in the comments below what you think. And don't forget to like, subscribe for even more fun to come.